Hello and welcome to the Animators Shake-Up, a webcast where animators talk about animation. On this episode, I chat with Lucas, an illustrator and FX animator, where we chat about the complexities of social interactions. Why not listen along while you work on your own animations and have us for company? So sit back, relax, as we shake it up with some fellow animators on the Animators Shake-Up. Hello Lucas and welcome to the Shake Up Ice Cream Parlour. It's lovely to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. It's Monday.
It's Monday.
Sun is shining though. Maybe it's an optimistic week.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got yourself some form of milkshake in front of you there. What have you gone for to accompany this beautiful day?
Unusual pick, hazelnut.
Oh, that is a great pick. That is. You know what? I've gone with a hazelnut one as well, actually. So I think I had one of these before. I think I was in Leeds at one time. There was a very small kind of off the beaten track milkshake place I went to, and they had sort of blends of any kind of gelato flavour. And one time I had a pistachio one there, and that was really nice.
Oh yeah.
And then I went back the next day because it was so good, and then I went for a hazelnut. So I totally get that. Why have you had a nice hazelnut?
Oh yeah. There's a place
before?
in Arundel called Belinda's Tea Room, which I go to.
Shout out!
When I go to Arundel, and it's just nice in there. And they poach some nice eggs. Yeah, and get a milkshake. It's that kind of lunchy, brunchy. Well, it's a tea room. It's Belinda's Tea Room. It's great.
Yeah.
And they
Belinda.
do a solid hazelnut milkshake. I mean, I'm a big advocate for chocolate, but it doesn't always need to be that sweet and that much. I'm really a dark chocolate man.
Dark chocolate hazelnut, man.
It's the superior chocolate. It's the superior chocolate.
It's for the refined gentleman.
Yeah. It's an educated chocolate. Well, it's used in cooking and in the cakes, and well, the thing about like milk chocolate and white chocolate, it can be quite sickly. Dark chocolate is not like that, and I don't mind a bit of bitterness. As we go into this whole diatribe about, like, no, I will eat the cookie chocolate. I will eat the 85% chocolate. Yes.
I think that is the main turner for most people, though, isn't it? Is that kind of bitterness about it. I think if you don't mind it or you quite enjoy it, then it's great. It's great stuff. Yeah. I think there was this. I can't remember what the brand was called, but it was like a completely red bar of chocolate. It's like Bourneville. That's
They're
it.
owned by Cadbury.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I think I had them around the Christmas time, like leading up to Christmas. Just one time, I was like, you know what, I'll give that a go. I hadn't really properly tried dark chocolate, and as soon as I had that, it was amazing, and it's now instantly associated that flavour for me with Christmas. It's lovely. It just makes me feel all happy.
It's like a Pavlovian response. You see the Bourneville, like, it's Christmas again. Oh, it's Christmas.
Yeah. So I actually picked some up recently, and it's completely thrown my brain. I'm like, where's the snow? It's just like the hottest part of the year.
Australian Christmas.
It is. That's true. Yeah. That's it. That's going to have to be the new tradition. It's time for my Australian Christmas. Where's the Bourneville? Let's whip out the Bourneville.
Like a June turkey in the oven.
Yeah, that's it.
We should eat turkey more. I like turkey. You can get a whole turkey leg for pretty cheap, and it's big. It's a turkey's leg. Is this all year round or just Christmas? All year round, yeah. Well, obviously they're most popular in the kind of the Yule time of year. So you could pick one up in March for a fraction of the price, and it's. I mean, if you like dark meat as well, because I know some people are like, oh, I don't want the dark meat. It's good, okay. It doesn't dry out.
Your dark meat and your dark chocolate.
Turkey leg, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. I mean, tell us a bit more about you in terms of what's your creative background? What's your fascination? Fill us in.
Well, when it comes to animation, for me it was the meeting point between fine art and film, which it turns out it actually is to the rest of the world as well. So that's nice. But well, I couldn't really pick between the two, and that was to do both. And so that was it really. I didn't really get serious about it until I went to college. Like I started, I did like was it art A levels, and I left them after the first year because well they said I could do what I wanted to do, and I couldn't. So I left. It was kind of that simple. It was like this is not what I signed up for.
You
so
lied.
Then I went to Barnet College and did a games and animation course, and then I went to uni. I was always very skeptical of going to uni. I was encouraged by my folks to go because they were saying like, "Oh, we never went to uni. We didn't. This was not a thing when we were growing up. Like we never did. My dad was apprenticed with BT or whatever, and he went into like telecoms, and he was like, dude, this is great. We can send your brother went. You should go. Like this is a wonderful thing."
Yeah.
I was always very skeptical of it because like I'm not an engineer or something or an architect. I don't need to, or a lawyer. But looking back, I would say I kind of broke even, which is not. I know that's not a glowing endorsement, but it's not complete damnation either.
No. No. I suppose that another sense of that is you got what you paid for, I suppose. If you break even.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, the way I view it is, would I have been more productive on my own for 3 years?
Yeah, true.
No, I don't think I would have. But part of that is because, I went to uni for the mentorship. I went out of my way to get it. Like, yes, I will take the 9 a.m. slot. I'm not a morning person, but if that's why if I got a gap at like 8 or whatever, or 7 or earlier, just crawl into uni to get the 9 a.m. slot to talk about the work, I'll do that. I used to have lunch with one of the lecturers. That was fun. I don't care if people think it's goofy. I've come all this way and I've paid all this money to talk to these guys. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was there was one lecturer that I feel like I to the point of bugging them. I would go and just, it was mostly for seeking help with it, because it was on my physics course. There was this one lecturer who was amazing. He was this wonderfully Italian man, and his catchphrase was fantastic, and it was amazing how frequently he managed to fit that into a sentence. But he was an incredible lecturer, and he taught us the lasers module, which was not easy. It was not easy at all, but I was like knocking on this guy's door every other day, and I did get to the point where I was like, I feel kind of bad, but I was like, should I feel bad? I don't know. He was really welcoming. I think he made it very clear that it was welcome, and I think as long as you've got a lecturer that also feels that way, there's no problem in it, I don't think. How was yours? Were they quite happy to have lunch?
It was the one I was having lunch with was Paul Taberham. Shout out to PhD film Paul Taberham, Dr. Paul Taberham. Thank you. Yeah. He was good to me. I actually I managed to get involved with the Bournemouth Emerging Arts Fringe, and I ran a film festival for them as part of their larger event, and I crashed on Tabe's sofa when I ran it. So I met his family and his children. Yeah. It was all very sweet. He's really genuine, and he seems to be a good person. Yeah. I don't say that too lightly. He seems to put in effort. Yeah. Beyond his usual disposition, which is already quite easygoing and friendly, to be conscious and of the world around him and this kind of thing. I find him to be an admirable person. I hope this finds its way to Paul. I haven't spoken to him in a little while. I keep meaning to, and then I just don't for some reason. But
yeah, maybe this is the cue.
I think it's fine. We just it's like that with a few people. We'll talk and in a very long-winded way, and then I'll disappear for a little while. Yeah, and that's okay.
I think a lot of those kind of like relationships, like it's kind of, because I keep doing this thing where I don't speak to a group of people for ages, but as soon as I happen to bump into them, or I'll just message them out of nowhere, and it just doesn't feel like any time has passed. Like it,
Yeah.
I think with particular relationships with people, it's just like, it's so easygoing. You don't have to worry about, I should have followed up with that person. It doesn't matter. Like, just when you do, like, the love and the care is still there. But yeah,
that's provided you're on the same page about it, which most people I don't know, I can't speak for you. It seems to be the case. You both kind of, it's an sort of unwritten agreement. It's like,
yes,
you just message when you feel like it, and you get back to each other in a reasonable amount of time, and it's pretty low pressure.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Yeah, it is. I think everyone kind of like is aware that they're busy, you're busy, and then maybe this is a call out for anyone who's like, man, I haven't spoken to this particular person for so long, or maybe even an old lecturer or an old teacher. It's like, why not just send them a message and say hi?
It costs you nothing, and it usually goes pretty well, and it can be quite wholesome. And for those of us who are less sociable, which, I mean, I like to talk. I don't want to talk to loads of people. That's sort of the funny thing, because I'm quite talkative. But I only, like, with the animation people in Brighton, I see you guys once a month, so that's kind of the difference there. But yeah, it's certainly worth doing. Again, it costs you nothing, and it's actually it usually is beneficial. And I don't mean that in like a strategy kind of cold calculating way. I mean, like, you message the person, you talk, and it's just nice to connect to people a little bit. And at least with the messages as well, particularly if it's one of those kind of longer ranging relationships or connections, the pressure isn't there to reply in an hour. It's like you write a long message and you're like, get back to me sometime next week. I don't know.
Or a month.
Sometimes let's say, or a month or whatever. Yeah. Especially if it's longer messages, it takes a bit of time. Like when I was messaging with Paul and some other people, I'd be spending like half an hour writing something up, like to make it all make sense and to format it. It sounds a bit silly, but I was like, no, I've got to give a proper response here that actually answers the questions and asks some questions that I want to know about, and like engage the person and not just send a throwaway message.
I mean, there's two ways of going about it, really, isn't there? There's like, you can either structure something which is to be like digested as a big thing, or you can just simply open with, "Hey, how goes it?" and then let the conversation go from there. It depends on the relationship you have with the person as well, I suppose.
Either way, I would suggest that you only ask questions that you actually care about the answer to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which sounds very bland, like a pretty obvious statement, but a lot of people, they get trapped in, I say a lot of people, from what I've seen and people have spoken about, they don't like, people can feel obliged into small talk. So if I ask, generally speaking, if I ask someone how they're doing, I'm not doing it to be polite. I haven't seen anybody for like 2 weeks, so I'm actually like, what's going on? I'm actually asking what's going on. I'm like with you guys again in Brighton. I see you once a month, so when I'm asking how you're doing, it's been a month. I want to know. But sometimes it comes across in a small talk way to some people. There's because that's also a very common question of just like, oh hi, how are you? You know, it's quite. But people say that as a formality as opposed to a genuine question.
Because I think we were chatting about this last time I saw you, actually. For those who don't know, we've met each other at the Brighton Animators Club, which is a really nice event where you can meet other animators. But I think we were saying, there's like a time and a place for small talk, where they do have their uses in terms of keeping the flow and pace, or making it easy to open up a conversation. So I think it's, it shouldn't be shunned.
Oh,
against,
no,
in my opinion, anyway.
I wouldn't start a real conversation in a lift.
You wouldn't dare. No, thanks. People you don't know.
I'm not disregarding all formalities or manners or what have you. Certainly, it's more knowing. Again, it's more just the principle of only asking questions that you actually care about the answer to, because that can still apply it in a smaller scale. Again, if you're stuck in a lift, it should. I feel like it leads to those fun little interactions that you have, where you don't need to ask someone how you're doing. You're just like, you just make a silly joke and walk off or something, and it doesn't need to be too involved.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's just not time, or you're busy, or you're in a queue or something, and then you leave.
Yeah. How goes it? Yeah, right. Yeah, pretty bad. All right, see ya.
So, I mean, that happens with me, actually, pretty much that exact.
Yeah, I had. I'm trying to think. There was a perfect example of this where there was someone. That's it. I delivered a talk at a film festival, and it went really well, which is great. But I was then, because I now lecture at a film school, and there was a student who wasn't in my class, but they'd seen me do a talk at that film festival, and they were on the way out of a class while I was on my way in to deliver a class in that same room. And for some reason, it had been an incredibly stressful day, very stressful. And they're really this really sort of beaming, smiley student. They sort of on their way out, and oh, Seb, how are you doing? And I was like, really overwhelmed, I think. And they just the face just dropped and was like, oh, and then they just sort of got pushed out by all their people behind them. And I was like, should I just answered, yeah, fine. I just didn't know what would have been the right response to that, because I don't like being disingenuous in those kind of responses. I always kind of have to be there has to be a little bit of truth in, like, how you doing? Pretty bad, actually, If I am, then I feel like the need to say it. I'm not sure about you, if you've ever been in that kind of situation.
I've got, as you may remember, I mean, when people ask me and it's not going great, how do I say this? I think honesty and being tactful are not mutually exclusive. So, if it's a real ebb, which, it's been a bit like that, the phrase I tend to use, which seems most appropriate, is not in active decline. Well, because I'm hanging on. It's not great. It's not fruitful. But
no, that's good.
We're not
in
active decline. I'm not falling apart. I'm not losing my marbles here. It's just, I'm just kind of wading through.
Yeah, I would love.
That's appropriate.
I would love to hear, it, like, in the comments or something, like, what people's responses would be to how you're doing if you are genuinely feeling terrible. Like, what are your creative ways of answering that? Because that would actually fascinate me. I'd love to.
What is the phrase of choice?
Yeah.
Because that was very premeditated on my behalf. The phrase "not in active decline." I was thinking about it in the shower, that kind of thing. It's one of those
I'll use that one. I'll use that one next time.
Oh, it just the pieces fit. It's not overly dour, but it is still honest, because it's not, when it's not sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it's just steep. It's just steep.
Yeah, and I feel as I said, I just feel the need to have a bit of honesty in the responses to that. I don't think I can always, because there was a lot whenever I was teaching at secondary school, and I would ask some teachers, how you doing? They'd be like, all right. And when I think back of like what their day had just been, I'm like, no, they're not all right.
Was any teacher at secondary school all right? Good God. I would never want to do that.
No.
With respect, no thank you.
No, I totally get that. But to be fair, I think whenever people ask me, my answers were always that kind of like, yes but no, kind of like a fun response to it.
Well, I mean, something like, that
yes, conversationally, God no, referring to how I actually am. But it brings a smile, so it's like...
It seems like... I didn't mean to interrupt you. It seems like something akin to, the situation is bad, but I'm fine. We need some sort of phrase for that. Where it's like, I'm like, I still have all my my fingers and stuff. The bits are all still here. It's just not a good scene that I'm in right now. I'm trapped in a bad scene.
How are you? Chaotic, but embracing it.
Yeah. Sometimes, or I say sometimes, I think that's a fairly common experience, right? Where it's like like I'm all here. It's just the room's upside down. It's not.
Yeah.
The situation looks bad. I'm just coping with it well, I suppose. I'm just enduring it. Well, I'd like to think that's more common as opposed to
I think
what I've
it
seen
is.
of people in a bit of a tough situation and not enduring it very well. But I see a lot of musicians, and they're known for that kind of thing. Rocket up, ordering double gin, and like one in each hand. She had a hard day.
Yeah.
I was joking with them
fair
actually.
enough.
It's like, am I the only one of us who could keep my marbles where they need to be? They cope with it without falling apart or turning to alcoholism or something.
Yeah.
And we kind of had a bit of a laugh about that because I was ribbing them. I was like, am I really the only one who's got any?
Yeah. I
But,
suppose everyone has their crutches, I suppose. But mine's milkshake, apparently.
that's not. I mean, I until quite recently had a bit of a chronic hobnob problem.
Nice.
Like the
It's
dark
a good
chocolate
problem to
hobnobs,
have.
as you might expect. Yeah. It's definitely cheaper than drinking, and I haven't eaten a hobnob in like a couple of weeks now.
Well, good
So
for you.
we're doing we're doing okay. Been eating a lot of, but
You got like a little whiteboard outside your room. It's
no,
just
I
like how
haven't
many days
thought-
since hobnob.
I haven't even no that's worse. I haven't even thought about it because then I'll be thinking about it. Then I'll be
Could have
thinking
had that in a
about
milkshake.
But what I was thinking about was why is it that the musicians are like this and similar artistic people, and I think it's because it's like the blokey people you might meet, the gazzers and the bazzers, they don't lack emotions. They're still a developed human with emotional depth. So what's the difference there? I think it's the pathway from those deeper parts upwards to the more conscious and like revealing and like surface of your forethought. I just think the pathway is more direct with the artistic people because of maybe because of their disposition, just as people, just like a personality trait, or perhaps because of their practice in that they very intentionally and consciously engage with deeper emotion.
Oh yeah, those because I bring this up every time, but it's always relevant. Like my study was in the neuroscience of creativity and creative thinking. And the
Cool.
big part of it that differs the thinking of a creative versus a scientist is the ability to resolve an idea to emotion. And so there is actually a part of us that as a creative, we are actively searching and engaging with, as you said, with our emotional intelligence. And that is something, it's a skill that can be learned. It's easier for some people to learn than others, but if you practice it and you engage with it and you want to express emotion, so you give your brain more chemicals to do so, you will develop your ability to understand and feel emotion even more. So yes, absolutely. Research shows.
Oh, okay. I mean, I just thought of that out of observing people and myself and like looking at the lay of the land. Again, I really think it's important, particularly because of certain attitudes people have within the artistic world, whatever discipline they might be in. It's like, no, like, Barry down the fucking Weatherspoons still has emotional depth. That's still a human. Like he probably watched Breaking Bad and thought it was fascinating as well. He's just not as articulate. And again, they've not made those connections consciously. They don't
as
again,
defined. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they don't have it. It's just not.
No,
the pathway is not as good. And I suppose part of that is our inclinations and the jobs they lead us towards to do that. That's having that pathway already makes us a good fit for these jobs. It's like a selection thing. You know how it's like not all huge men play rugby, but all rugby players are huge men. Like it's a selection type thing of what you fit for and what's fit for you.
Speaking of which, like what is it that you've sort of become? What was it that sort of fascinated you, that led you to where you are, I suppose, because you said you had an interest in both illustration and then sort of like moving visual media. But what is it? What is it that either you're working on, or what is it that first sort of hooked you? I suppose that made you realise that this was your fascination.
Well, again, it's the want to do both. It's the want to do both. And it was kind of split the difference, really. It's like, I can do both at the same time. Fantastic. I don't have to pick between these two different things. But so that was the genesis of it. It really is that simple, I'm afraid.
You were just sort of dabbling in each, and then couldn't decide each.
Well, I was
which
much
one,
more leaning into like the fine art type career path. And then sort of the idea just sort of revealed itself one day. I can't really remember what happened. It wasn't anything dramatic. It just, I had left sixth form, and I was like, well, now what do I do? I know the things I'm interested in. And I found this course at Barnet, and I was like, great, send it, let's go. Yeah. Sign me up. And
so was it more?
Right.
So was it more of like the process of making it over having seen something which particularly fascinated you? Was it like the actual act of doing it which was really key to you?
No, I think it was more the end result, actually.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Maybe I've articulated that poorly, but it was again, seeing something that is both moving image and essentially fine art. It's the synthesis of both really was very moving. I've actually got some in my notes. Yeah, because things like, I can just name some things that really kind of engaged me, that kind of really turned me onto it. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust from 2000. God damn, what a movie. It's from the guy who did Ninja Scroll. It's an anime. It's so moody and interesting, and it's an action movie, but it's also like it's a love story. It's so it's just really, I'm trying to articulate. I feel kind of not almost overwhelmed by it. It's just like, it's so very much engaged me. And I saw Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust 2000. And I was like, this is so good. I want to do this. This I could do. This I could really commit myself to making that kind of work. That's one of them. Akira. Everybody knows Akira. Everybody loves Akira. Redline. Now, Redline, the story doesn't matter. It's just all craftsmanship. Like, it was so good, it bankrupted the studio like twice over. The guy who directed it basically never got another job again because it was such an out of control project. But oh my god, it's just like so indulgent. It's so indulgent. It's just so beautiful. It's so intensely expressive. That really, even like now, and I've seen it like 6-7 times or whatever, it still like gets the blood pumping. It just it fascinates me that something could be done to the nth degree. It's like every scene is so unnecessarily excellently animated, or almost every scene. I think there are very few exceptions, and the only ones that would be were probably because they're people sitting around and there's not much more to do, and they've already spent 14 billion yen or however much it cost to do all the other stuff. I don't know if you've seen Redline, but
I haven't. I need to though.
Oh, the soundtrack's good, and it's just really, it is again a very indulgent piece of animation.
I love that.
A lot of stuff by Robert Valley. He's Canadian. He did Pear Cider and Cigarettes and a few short films, and he did a couple of things in Love, Death and Robots as well. He's good. Yeah, those are some of the earlier things. I'm trying to think what else now. I'm quite into the short films and the experimental stuff. The names are just not coming right now.
That's all right. Yeah, no, because I
struggle a bit with the names.
I had a phase, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's ever left. I have, and maybe will continue to believe that short films versus feature films, I find short films so wonderful. Like like on average, if I was to average out my experience watching feature films and then average out my experience watching short films, I just find short films so much more captivating for me because they feel like such beautifully short, concisely crafted, almost essentially visual poetry that is able to tell so much in such a bite that to me is, I just can't get enough of shorts, to be honest.
Have you seen, so I just remembered something else that came up. It's a lot of the work by Michael de Doc DeWitt, who did Monk and the Fish and the feature Red Turtle, and some other short films. Father and Daughter, there we go. Yeah, because I went to college and that was an animation and games course, so that was a bit broader house. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't really that clued in on the greats of animation, and I wasn't really that into short films at the time. Like I was, for how much time I was putting in, I was quite I'm not well read. I was quite illiterate on it for how much I was willing to commit. Actually, now I think about it, it was only really when I got to uni, and that's partly through Paul Tabham's lectures. Actually, that's got a bit more exposure to some of the history of it, and some of the sort of films that aren't mainstream outside of animation, if that makes sense. Because animation, so I've been told, it's a bit of a small world. But so even things that are like Joanna Quinn is like very well known in the animation world, but no one else would really recognize her, I think, on the street. And I don't mean that in any disrespect. I mean because like she's great in the animation world, but the animation world is there aren't that many parts of it that are fully mainstream, which I think is, for the most part, all right.
It's the same with VFX. Like, no one really knows the name of any or many visual effects artists, but everyone will know the films that they've made. And this was a really interesting thing. There was a couple of documentaries I watched on this about a couple of years ago or a year ago, where they were saying how Oscars awarded to visual effects artists are actually more damaging than not receiving an Oscar. Because if you're an actor or a director and you receive an Oscar, then they put that on the DVD cover by the Oscar-winning director of. Okay, and then the people go, oh yeah, I'll buy that. That's got a good thing. And I recognise that name. They did win the Oscar. Whereas with a VFX artist, they don't tend to publicise on the piece of work that it was made by the Oscar-winning visual effects artist, because no one knows the name anyway. And so what ends up happening is there's this association with, if you win an Oscar, that means that you probably cost too much. So then they don't hire you.
I was worried you were going to say that. My first thought when you were describing a scenario is maybe not so well in the mainstream, but in the niche world, that makes you kind of a big deal. Like my first thought was Savini. He does like the VFX and creature effects and like blood, and he's the horror guy. He did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a few other things. I say a few other things. Like he's one of the greats of like practical effects. I'm sure his first name is Tom, but I'm notoriously bad with names. But I know his last name is Savini. But he is like I was going to say the godfather of practical effects. I don't think that's too big of a statement, but he's the guy. He's very well respected, been around for a long time. So that's kind of one of those cases where, like the niche horror fans and stuff, he's amazing, and I'm sure he's won a few awards for it because he's just been around so long and done so much and been so influential. Like a lot of practical effects kind of find a common ancestor in his work.
I think definitely like special effects are quite they're quite celebrated now, especially you look at for example like Hellboy and The Shape of Water, those kind of things. Like if it's got the same kind of like special effects artists working on it, I think they do tend to publicize that a bit, which is good. I'm glad that it's coming around a bit more, but we still need it in editing, in visual effects in animation, the animators of, but there is this weird association with people thinking that post-production, it's just an unnecessary expense, or like if they're animating, we don't really want to pay them that much for the hours they do. It's just a bit of a mess when it comes to entertainment-based media anyway.
I'm pulling a face because there's that, I suppose it's a bit old hat now, but to say like, oh, fix it in post, or fix it in edit,
Yeah.
Like that was a thing for a long time, and I'm pretty sure it still is. I don't think that's gone away. So it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Maybe the executive producers who aren't on the ground, but I've never met a lazy editor. I'll say that way.
Yeah, that's right.
The editors,
they work the blimmin' hardest.
They're those poor guys. They're just stuck there forever, just in the editing suite.
Yeah, no, I don't. I did try editing other people's work. I can edit my own, which is fine because I know what I put myself into when I say, oh yeah, we'll sort that out later. But I know whether I could or couldn't. The problem is when on a film set, it's when a director or a producer doesn't have experience with visual effects or post-production, and they don't get a supervisor on set, and then they will shoot things and be like, oh, we can probably fix that, without notifying or checking with anyone, and they'll go ahead with it, and then it gets thrown over to the editor and the VFX artist, and they say, why can't you fix that? Well, you didn't plan for that. You need to plan for things you're going to fix. But a lot of people don't get that in the film world, sadly.
So would because I'm not that familiar. I don't have any first-hand experience live action, so I'm not all that familiar. I watch a fair few behind-the-scenes documentaries, and I have an interest in it, as most people do, just in generally these days, actually, which is kind of nice. There's a lot of media being produced, and a lot of people watching. It's really ballooned. Because from your description, then it sounds like your supervisor, your effects supervisor, it's almost like a consulting role to kind of people kind of lean over and go, actually, we need it to be blue or green.
That's right. That is right.
Because we can't actually fix it. Double the budget, please.
Yeah, it is absolutely that. But then often it usually means that they save money overall, which they don't realise. They don't realise that, if we pay someone to be on set and help us make decisions, then it will save us more money in the long run. But they just don't see that. They see that as an unnecessary person to have on set, and they don't think that, because I think they think it will only save us money if we do it wrong. But they always end up doing it wrong.
I was just thinking that. I was just about to say, it's like the most expensive shots are reshoots.
Yeah.
Always. And if you're and that still applies to VFX. I was talking to a friend of mine. His name is Sarp. He's a good guy. He mostly does kind of VFX and CG, but he's really good at 2D, actually. He's a really efficient drawer at 2D. This guy works fast and expressive. Zach in Time, he's got like a thing going on. I'm sorry, Seb. I'm plugging everybody's stuff on your.
Go for it.
I'm screaming at all these other people in the milkshake and shack.
Help
everyone
connect.
I'm just pitching to the. I'm gonna pitch to the lady behind the counter.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's doing Zach in Time, which is all 2D, and he was telling me about his trials and tribulations working on Marvel films, and he's just this guy. I know this man has a cabinet of like 12 different Spider-Mans from different eras. Like he's like figurines and memorabilia and stuff. Like he's in, and he chose to, if I recall correctly, he chose to leave to go freelance because it was so much stress and this and that. And again, they don't realize when you ask them to change a big VFX shot, how long that takes to change. Not even just the work, but then like the render time as well. It's like, no, it takes 18 hours just to render half of it, and that's only the small change. That's not even the whole thing. It's like, that's not even working. That's just computing. So I don't know, maybe there's some sort of gap between, there's some sort of communications error between whoever's up on high and whoever's actually doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, this is because when coming back to it again, when I lecture at the film school, the big thing that I'm trying to push is that everyone, and I mean everyone who is in that film school, needs to be educated on the rough process of post-production and visual effects, because every production that they work on, like proper production, will have some aspect of visual effects in it. And it's like, how do we make sure that people either respect the people who are working in it, or at least have a vague idea? Because once they do that, and that you give them that awareness, then they can sort of help with those decisions, and they know how to approach things a lot better. So I think it's mostly in sort of educating people and knowing the right way to go about stuff, an idea of the process at least, or the workflow, something like that.
Well, when you say it that way, if people aren't aware of the pipeline, they're kind of working with an incomplete picture.
That's right.
And that's fine until things go wrong, and things always go wrong. So
need to educate themselves.
Well, you just put yourself out of a job there.
What, me or them?
They've got to educate themselves. Like, yeah.
Oh, by watching my content. They find me and I teach them.
But I hadn't thought about it too much, because already having the interest and wanting to get stuck in, it was not something I'd avoided. I was lucky, I think, in that when I was working on a show and I was in fixing. It was the only big industry job I've actually had. I say big industry, like formal, like longer than 6 month proper like contract.
Yeah.
Because I was in fixing, I was uniquely, in terms of pipeline jobs, like I had a nice place to see different places in production, and because kind of straddling between animation and the edit, I was just between production and post production, just literally like the connective tissue. And I was doing all the studio notes, because that's the job, right? It's to kind of do the reshoots as it would be in live action. So that gave me a really nice cross section across the pipeline, which I found quite interesting, especially since the editors actually worked a lot with the storyboarders, which is a kind of an interesting wraparound from the start of the pipeline to the end of the pipeline. To get the animatics done and this sort of stuff. And it was just really interesting, and I got to see a lot of different people's work. Like, you were saying earlier about, can we give like a team award, or like because on movies they'll say from the director or from the producers of, or just from J.J. Abrams, because that's definitely an endorsement these days. Yeah, great, thanks. But when I was working and fixing, I could tell people shots without seeing their name on the thing after a while. Not immediately, but after a while you can, like, I know certain people, because it was a rig show, it was like a digital puppet show, which I was pretty skeptical about in terms of effectiveness. But there was definitely a few people on that show who were really expressive with the rigs. Like they stood out as having a really in-depth ability to manipulate them. So that was good. That was a bit of a ray of hope, actually, in a way, because obviously a lot of 2D productions are moving towards rigs because they're just so cost efficient.
Yeah.
But how do you get character out of them? You can. It's a different skill set, but it is doable. It is doable, but it's not as mechanically straightforward as drawing is to us, because we're so used to drawing. Or we should be so used to drawing and picturing things that way, that when you've got this extra layer of operation, right, where I can't just draw the line. No, I have to change the node or this or that to then make it do that. There's like an extra layer of input, I should say. Kind of models things, but it's a tool, that extra layer of input, and there's a lot you can do with it. Or they can do with it, I should say. No, I was good enough to do the reshoots, but I wasn't quite as good as some of them, which is a bit funny when I think about that. Any of them, the only time I'd ever get their stuff is because it was a studio note. It wasn't ever because of an internal thing, because they were really good.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, like, because you sort of dabbled in this, but what is it, that you're kind of like working on at the moment? Like what is your sort of realm, I suppose, in animation?
Well, I do 2D traditional hand drawn. I do a fair bit of effects within that as well. So usually I'll pitch myself as like a 2D effects artist or just traditional 2D animator. Although the way things are at the moment, so I spent a long time trying to be an animator who does fine art, and that would be kind of the secondary thing because I never really wanted to get into the fine art world. I remember finding out half of it was money laundering, and I was a bit deflated about that. But the way things have gone, it's starting to look like the other way around. You know, I'm going to be being a portrait artist who does short films on the side. It's just like, I spent all this time trying to get out of that, and I landed right back into it. It's the only thing I'm getting any real traction in. It's just like, what? Well, I say any real, or at least recently, I should say. At least recently, that appears to be a promising avenue. I'm most grateful for that. But it's just like, I really thought, I feel silly now, but I thought the animation work would be more consistent because of the nature of animation contracts.
Yes.
Like with portraiture and fine art and this kind of stuff, unless you get a juicy residency, which is possible, like that's on the table, but it seems a lot more common to get 6, 8, 12 months on a show, on a movie, or more than that on a movie, depending on what you're doing. That seemed to me to be a more stable career choice. And then in those gaps, which there are always gaps, even between seasons, there's gaps. Like you can, as I'm sure you're very well aware, you know, you could be signed on for the next season, but it doesn't start till March. So what are you going to do from January to March? You know, like for me, that would be like portraits and short films and, you know, this kind of freelance fine art type stuff. But it just doesn't seem to be. You see, again, it seems to be the other way around. Which I just feel so silly. I was like, oh yeah, we'll get contracts and then like we'll have stable work for most of the year. And it's like, no.
Yeah, it
you're doing portraits, mate. You're doing portraits. You're gonna like it. You'll get to work on a show like once every other year. Good luck with the short films. Bye.
Yeah, and then the portraiture is the fallback of stability. Because it's always there as a thing to do.
Oh yeah. Maybe I didn't say it rightly. I was trying to say that's becoming now the main thing. It's kind of
it's tilted
the other way. It's tilted the other way.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know. Like I said, I had negative associations with the kind of the fine art crowds and their attitudes and that world. It's just like you go to a gallery at a museum and you see the big text on the wall and you're like, this is just waffle. This is salesman speak, you know? Like half the people who run the galleries, I mean, I don't know the actual number, but a significant portion, they're the same business suits, the business type people who run everything else. They're just wearing a lime suit instead of a grey suit. Like that's the only difference. It's just got a more colourful outfit, but to them, it's still an asset. It's just an asset to be managed and traded and profited from. And there's nothing wrong with making a bit of money, but you still have to respect the craft. You know, there should still be more of that, and many of them do. But again, this kind of almost managerial kind of asset management mindset, I feel, competes with whatever affection they have for the art form. Because I'm sure they wouldn't be into collecting and trading and running galleries if they didn't care about it at all. Although, how many people do you know that have a job and hate their job and aren't personally really into their job?
Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking about Sarp earlier. He loves it all, and he still had to leave because of, or he didn't have to leave. He chose to leave, I believe. Again, because whoever was running it was not doing him a good turn. They don't give a shit, that's for sure. Whoever was high above him, they just see numbers on a screen. They don't see any of the actual work, and that's not just because it's an art thing. The same applies for like carpentry. You know, it's still a skill, or being a cobbler.
I suppose, like, what is the alternative? You know, like, what would be the optimal way that you would like to, let's say if it was in illustration and portraiture, what would be your optimal way of surviving that as a professional, but also creating the work? Like, what would be this perfect landscape that you would like if you had to imagine one?
I'd not got as far as being so idealistic.
Just pointing out the problems.
No, that doesn't mean I'm not doing anything at all. I'm doing it myself. I'm trying to sell more directly to whoever's going to buy, as opposed to be trapped in the gallery system.
Exactly.
Having said that, there's also, it's kind of a threshold issue, because there's a smaller gallery in Chichester which is kind of community run and is not as. So when I was describing those types of galleries, I was thinking more of London, which is not surprising given London's, being a large financial sector just in and of itself. That attitude makes a lot of sense. It's just sort of, part of that is just kind of city living. It's just kind of city. It's the trappings of city life. Is those attitudes? They're very easily cultivated. Whereas Chichester, which is still a city as a cathedral, the layout's a bit different in terms of what people are like and the attitudes towards each other. And I think, at least for the gallery I am in mild contact with, again, I believe it's mostly community run, and it's not a stock trading business that happens to have portraits in it. It's a bit more boutique than that. I think that's what I would like to see more of, that they can be a bit more focused on the craftsmanship of it, and the people who actually want that, who are going to buy art, care about that actually. Despite the nature of the people selling it, the people buying it, even to a certain extent. I mean, there's still the people buying it simply as a store of wealth. Not inherently wrong if you need assets. Like if you happen to have enough money that assets are even a thing, at least they're buying art. At least art's getting made. But for the most part, that's not the majority of people, and I think making it a little bit more accessible. Like, I think there's a healthy place to meet in the middle, where I don't have to sell my portraits for nothing, and they can still afford to buy it. I think that's the right place. And I think these kind of, again, I use the word boutique because I couldn't think of a better word, but these kind of medium to smaller scale galleries that are quite earnest. I think that's the right spot. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And not to knock somewhere like Bonhams, because like somewhere like Bonhams, they deal in art history at this point. They're dealing in antiques. That's pretty incredible stuff. Do you know the sort of galleries I'm talking about?
I don't know, but it's all fascinating to me, though.
Yeah, there's just this. I struggle to articulate it. I kind of pulled out from that world. I stopped being interested and again focused much more on animation, which I thought was a bit more pragmatic. But there's just a sort of commercialized attitude that exists within a lot of these places that
sort of finding
is just not conducive, I think, to. I'm trying to find the right words. I haven't thought about it too much recently. I've been focused on like my nice little prospects. Hopefully, we can turn something around there. But
but no, it
just feels corporate. I think that's the word. It just feels corporate, and I don't think that is a direction that I'd like it to go in. Again, I'm not against business. I'm against being corporate. These are not the same thing.
Yeah. Sorry, as you say, there's these as you say, there's these smaller communities, which I suppose, that see art for what it is. The illustrations, the pieces, that they respect the art for the art's sake, and I think it's about trying to figure out where those communities are, I suppose, and building that network of people. I think if anyone's thinking about or worried about these things, I think as long as you surround yourself with the right community and you do your research into which either galleries or individuals do care more than the idea of exchanging assets, I suppose there is hope. There is hope out there.
Oh, I would encourage. Oh, sorry to interrupt. It's a bit of a thing. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I got a bit excited. All I was going to say was,
it's okay.
I really encourage people to just make it first and worry about selling it later.
Yeah, that's right. Do it for you. That's it.
Yeah, really. Don't wait. Don't wait.
Yeah, no. And so in terms of because I know that you're working on some animation as well at the moment. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I've been working on it on and off for a little while, so I'm a bit worried to talk about it again. If anyone's going to listen to who already knows me, they would have heard this all before. But it's slowly getting done. It's kind of a loose format documentary about red kites, which is a large bird of prey that was I believe it was severely endangered. They were down to only a few breeding pairs in Wales, and there was a reintroduction program in 1980, I think, on the dot. I'll have to pull up my document just to find the exact dates. I've done, and yeah, there was a colony in Spain, and they brought over some breeding pairs from there and interbred them with some of the ones already here, and they then continued to reintroduce some more over the years. About every 3 to 5 or 6 years, they'd bring over a few more and see how it's going. Long story short, it did very, very well. It was a highly successful reintroduction program, and now they are ubiquitous. They're like everywhere. It was. I think it's a very noteworthy and successful reintroduction program. So it's really. It's about, what are they doing now? Now there's a million of them. What are they up to? What are they doing with all this newfound life? But well, what started it in the first place was that I went to see my brother, who now lives in the north. Like, actually in the north. Like, there's a big sign that says the north, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a bit that someone would come up with. No. There really is just a big sign that says the north. Really substantiating that north-south divide.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a bunch of red kites like flying around because they're partly scavengers. They're not entirely asocial. Because some birds of prey are a bit prickly and they don't really associate. Red kites seem to have no problem, and there was probably about 10 of them just like flying around, just like goofing around. And I just thought they were really interesting, so I got looking into it, and I thought it would make for a good, minute or two of animation or hand drawn on ones and twos with an unnecessarily high detail render. Just really making my life more difficult. But like I was talking about earlier, a certain unnecessarily high standard and a certain kind of indulgence is something that I really appreciate in animation, where you can tell how much skill and the attitude to really commit to pushing it. It doesn't need to be on ones. It doesn't need to, but it's going to have some ones in it. It already has some ones in it. It's not necessary, but man, does it look good. Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about these kind of projects is that you can make them what you want them to be. I think you don't have any of these external pressures. It's purely up to you, and I think that is such an important thing for any artist, to have a space to indulge in that in their own way, which I think is great. So yeah, best of luck with the ones, high detailed ones.
Well, I'm trying to cut back on the ones. It's really going to be twos, because I'm doing my pencils on fours, and then we go from fours to twos, and then twos to ones if need be. So far, I haven't really needed to do any more ones, and I'm quite pleased about that. Because that's even for all my my praise of unnecessarily trying so hard. Like, what ones are like even a bit unnecessary to me? But
I vary my frame rates constantly throughout a single motion. I just love, whenever there is that particular motion that just feels like it needs just that one extra between those twos, just to really give it that zip. I just can't stop myself. Like, I have to throw it in there. It's just so nice sometimes.
I mean, it's turned out well. I hope the people listening, however many they are familiar with your work. I'd say it's gone very well, and a lot of other animators who are very successful also do that. You know, they're not purely committed to like, oh, it just must be on twos the entire time. They're
Yeah.
not. It's an unnecessary. I'm using that word again, but it's. I think it's the right word. It's an unnecessary restriction. You know, put in twos and threes if you need it to. It depends partly how it reads. If you remember, that's what Joanna Quinn was talking about when she's talking about the way she animates. I wrote some notes, but she was saying that as long as your keys are solid and legible, all the in-between bits are just motion. They're just motion. They really don't have to be as strict as that, and it will still read. And her work is a really good example of of that principle, which obviously she animates by, but she really executes it very well.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement, but also I have my additions to it as well, because I absolutely believe that getting your key poses is essential for describing the motion as a whole. I think it can play a big part in delivering the information, which is essential. But because of the way that my brain works, all the physics and the ideas of motion, I'm like, to me, that this aspect of motion, it should be, in some cases, even more carefully crafted and articulated than the poses, the key poses at some points, because without it, you lose what's going on. You lose the weighting. And to me, that, in my particular work, that weighting, that impulse, those impacts, those changes of momentum, that rotational aspects, they are it, like they are the big stuff. But yeah, to convey the information of what's going on, it is those key poses that matter. But to get that oomph, I'm like, I need to really iron out that motion and
no, I know
feel
what I think
everything.
when you describe that.
Yeah.
But can you give us an example of a shot or a motion that would fall into that sort of category?
A good example, I did one where there was a character who was kind of like spinning in the air, kind of like balled up in like a little sort of cannonball shape spinning. And then as they were spinning, they then opened out their limbs, so then they were spinning with a greater radius. And if you do that, you're still going to conserve your rotational momentum, but because you've increased your rotational inertia by increasing the radius of your position of your limbs around the pivot point, your velocity will slow down to maintain the rotational momentum. So yeah, it's just like it's in that it just gives it that real satisfaction of this really quick spinning, all balled up, and then you pull out and then you slow down, but you will, and it gives everything weight. It makes everything feel really satisfying. So to me, that's like a really nice example that a lot of people don't necessarily instantly think of. It's the same thing with the ballerina when they like tuck in their limbs and they spin faster, but the other way around, I suppose.
You need to know that it is scientifically sound.
No, not necessarily. I play with things a bit beyond that, but I think there's like a certain level of physicality that needs to be shared in the motion for an audience to understand what's going on and understand a bit about that object that they're looking at. Is it bouncy?
So when would you depart from something that's a bit more strictly in line with the real physics of it? When would you depart and exaggerate or maybe undermine something for some sort of communicative effect,
Yeah. In the past, it's been with trying to express comedy. That's my usual go-to. If something needs to feel to the point where it's like, oh, we're supposed to laugh at this, then I would completely break the rules of Newton's three laws and just be like, that's right, they're just going to slump up to a wall and then they're going to peel away from it and sort of flop down, and they're going to just be able to rotate along the ground without anything that's going to actually push them, because then if you have that consistency of things feeling real and then something like that happens, oh, this is a silly moment, this is fun, I can laugh at this isn't like they're in peril, this is haha. So it's a good trigger. I use it as like an image system to help cue people for laughter in my work anyway. Yeah. But yeah,
when I was thinking Warner Brothers stuff when you were describing that, it's kind of like some of the characters, they almost become liquid, they kind of become boneless. Slither along the ground like Bugs Bunny or something.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, so I consider the motion as a really important tool to almost not only to cue people on what to think, but it helps ground the emotions as well. But yeah, to sort of wrap up, I suppose, our chat today, I've got like a couple of questions which I always ask people towards the end. Is the first one being, if you were to look back to a younger you, what advice would you give yourself?
So I'm thinking. I haven't just disappeared. I'm thinking.
You're still there. Try hazelnut milkshake earlier.
No, I was trying to reach for something a bit more meaningful than that.
Yeah, no, you can go with something more meaningful.
I mean, it's a bit more of a recent thing, but don't hesitate to draw in unexpected places, because since last July, almost a year now, I've been going on lots of like jazz nights and open mics and kind of small gigs to draw, because the live drawing is just like not a thing in my area, but I know they're always going to be there, especially at the open mics. So I go and hide in the corner of the room and just draw the musicians, because they're always up there and they're in a specific place, and sure, they're moving around, but that was a challenge that I had to that's pushed me to develop my skills. So I would say do that sooner. And I'm not sure. Well, when I was living in London, I would go to the museums to draw, and I felt quite enriched by that. Not so much of an option here, but even still, I think. And I was doing a lot of life drawing as well, which kind of filled that gap. But even with both those things, I think go to the odd jazz club once in a while, and just draw the musicians for like an hour. I think would have been very beneficial in terms of speeding up my work rate, which is always something. I'm a long pose man and a short pose world, so so I think that would be an achievable and tangible piece of advice.
Yeah, no, that's nice. Yeah, it's nice little sort of bites of.
Go out to different kinds of things.
Yeah,
it doesn't even just have to be like music stuff. It can be like just events or whatever. Or like last year I went to Arundel Castle for the jousting. That was really good.
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
Well, I spoke to the guy who's part of the reenactment group that does the historic days, and he said he'll put in a word for me with the jousting people, like introduce me.
Yes.
Because just to clarify, I'd already spoken to him and got along, and I'd saw him once or twice at events at the castle. Because again, it's one of those things. I go and I draw like the historic people and the music, because they have musicians there too. But it's interesting. There's no one walking down the street with a big hat like that. It's no longer, it's not 1850 anymore. 1850, sorry, 1580 anymore. But they are there, and it's a great drawing opportunity.
Yeah.
Go and stand out in the sun, draw some cool hats. And so then I got to speak with the jousting crew, and they were all very lovely, and we had dinner together, which was really kind of them to invite me to join them, sitting on the castle grounds and just eating like rice and pork. It was really lovely. They were very sweet. Hopefully I can catch some of them again this year, but I never thought that would happen. I just wanted to get some drawing of some of the jousting competitors, and being the sorts that they are, and the pageantry of it. I feel like they wouldn't, they might have an appetite for a portrait artist, just like the musicians do.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, I like that.
Go to things. Unusual. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Always bring your sketchbook. Always do.
And I might know the answer to this one already, because it might be similar to something we previously talked about. But what do you have planned next with regards to your creative projects? I suppose I was going to guess continuing with your red kite. I need loose documentary
I need
piece.
to finish that. I've started it, and it's actually going all right, and the material is viable, if you know what I mean. Like it's not a bad idea. It's not a complete mess. I mean, showing you guys at the club and some of the more experienced people in the world of short films, they're being quite encouraging. I wouldn't expect them to go there and cut me down, but if it's not a goer, if it's not like a live project, if that makes sense, I'd expect I'd find out there, because you guys are going to be a lot more aware of, or have a bit more of an ability to see where this is going. And so far, responses have been like pretty positive in terms of it going somewhere. Outside of that, it's portraits, and if I can't get anything to go right, I don't know, I'll go to Brazil.
Nice, I like it. I love it.
You
can chat to more interesting people there as well.
My best mate is in Brazil, or he's just come back, but he's going back. And I don't know, maybe I'll go to Brazil. The exchange rate's really good. go over there and draw and paint for a bit, and spend waste what little money I've got left. I might as well.
Yeah, live.
Yeah, before I have to go back to doing whatever else. But again, we'll see. I'm holding out. Maybe I shouldn't, but I'm holding out to see if I can get anything going with these portraits, because we're a few in now. We're like 3 in. Number 4 is going to be this week. So we'll see if I can actually make some sales.
Yeah, or I hope you can.
What I was really considering as well, because portraits can be quite difficult. Who's going to buy a picture of someone they don't know? But it would be a good platform to get more commissions, I hope. I've not done very well advertising myself.
Right.
But this might be a good opportunity to be out in the real... I'd rather be there in the real world, because what commissions I have got, I've actually got from being at events and in places, drawing out in public. That was another thing I thought to do as well. Do you know how people kind of, they busk and they do like caricatures? I'll go and do like proper portraits, 20 minutes, half an hour just on the street.
I was legitimately developing a thing of doing this. Good. Yeah, sillier ones though, not like these lovely more accurate.
No, I mean the caricature people seem to do okay. I mean,
I need to look into whether you need a license for it. That's the thing I've got to check.
As far as I'm aware, you don't. Just take cash and run away.
So it depends how fast you can run. Amazing. And sort of on note with publicising yourself and letting people know that you're out there, where can people find you if they want to reach out or check out what you do?
Easiest place would be Instagram for the time being. Thinking about setting up a website. At the moment, I've been using ArtStation to send people showreels, because everybody uses ArtStation, and if you send someone like an ArtStation link in an email, it's not viewed with suspicion, or a Vimeo link. But the most common place is going to be Instagram. So,
and what's your handle on that?
L.J.Gaveglia.
Excellent. And we'll have a description just in case if someone's
thank you.
They can go check it out. Yeah, well, it's been great chatting with you, Lucas. I hope you enjoyed your hazelnut milkshake. I enjoyed it as well, if you did. But yeah, and it was lovely chatting with you, and hopefully see you soon.
Goodbye.